Shalom, and welcome to Light of the Hill Ministries. In today's teaching, we will be continuing in Genesis. If you want to follow along, I will be posting this in the comment box below. Now, under the teaching. And the earth was corrupt before Elohim. And the earth was filled with violence, and Elohim looked upon the earth and saw that it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their ways on the earth. And Elohim said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And see, I'm going to destroy them from the earth. Genesis 6, verses 11 through 13. In the days of Noah, the earth had become so wicked before Elohim that violence had engulfed it. This was a dark time of rebellion and utter disregard for Yahweh. And when we consider how corrupt it must have been, we can begin to recognize just how sinful it was, as we see how the world today is becoming increasingly wicked and violent, with very few people seeking Yahweh. Now, the Hebrew root word used for corrupt is shachat, Strong's number H7843, which means destroy, ruin, spoil, pervert, corrupt. And as there was no regard for Yahweh, the earth was rotting away because of transgression of the law. Even Yahshua gives us a snapshot of what life was like in Noah's time when he says, and as the days of Noah was also so the coming of the son of Adam be. For as they were in the days before the flood, eating, drinking, marrying, given in marriage, until the day Noah entered into the ark. And they did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So also shall the coming of the son of Adam be. Matthew 24, verses 37 through 29. When Messiah says that the days before the flood, the people were eating and drinking, marrying and given in marriage, it means that they were feeding on the flesh, and they had no regard for marriage that Yahweh put together as set apart. He's not saying that getting married in the last day is wrong, but rather, just as in Noah's day, when we treat marriage as common in becoming unequally yoked with unbelievers, there will be a profaning of the institution of marriage in the last days. As Paulus teaches us, do not become unequally yoked with unbelievers, for what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness? And what fellowship has light with darkness? 2 Corinthians 6, verse 14. The Hebrew word for violence is Hamas, Strong's number H2555, which means violence, wrong, malicious. When people turn away from the Torah, their lives inevitably descend into a violent and malicious rebellion against the need to walk according to the Torah. Man's corrupted doctrines that have shaped us after the Messiah has inevitably caused many professing believers to be angry at the thought of simply obeying the Torah, and have thus corrupted their lives into a state of lawlessness, assuming that Yahweh's favor has given them license to not obey his commands. Pay attention to the warning in these scriptures. Her prophets are reckless, treacherous men. Her priests have profaned the set-apart place. They have done violence to the Torah. Zephaniah 3, verse 4. Her priests have done violence to my teaching, and they profane my set-apart matters. They have not distinguished between the set-apart and profane, nor have they made known the difference between the unclean and the clean. They have hidden their eyes from my Sabbaths, and I am profaned in their midst. Ezekiel 22, verse 26. What we see as a repeated woe against a corrupted Israel was the fact that they had corrupted their ways and done violence to the Torah of Yahweh. And the same is happening today, as false priesthoods are not teaching the masses the difference between the clean and the unclean, or the set apart and profane. As a result, these prophets were greedy. They were always emphasizing the importance of giving to them. And by doing so, they were essentially telling Israel that Yahweh is always broke. His treasury had run out of funds, and you had better save Yahweh this week, or there would be nothing to give to the poor and needy. What the false prophets were doing was stealing from the treasury and extorting people from all walks of life. The rich, the poor, the widows. They just didn't care who they stole from. They not only extorted from the people, but they also violated his Torah. They had profaned Yahweh's set-apart things by failing to teach the difference between what is set apart and what is profane. They also did not distinguish between clean and unclean. They even kept their eyes hidden from Yahweh's Sabbaths. False priests and prophets are no different today. The sad part is they're doing all these things in the name of Yahweh. And Yahweh's word about them is no different than today, and that is, and her prophets have coated them with whitewash, seeing a false vision and divining a lie for them, saying, "Thus said the Master Yahweh," but Yahweh had not spoken. Ezekiel 22, verse 28. They tell people that they see a vision, and if you send them money, they will be blessed. Yahweh clearly says that he has not spoken to such persons. Instead, these people gave money to these false prophets and priests, are oppressed by them. The people of the land have practiced oppression and committed robbery and have wronged the poor and needy, and they have oppressed the stranger without right ruling. Ezekiel 22, verse 29. The false priests and prophets practice oppression, committed robbery, wronged the people and needy, the poor and needy, and were without right ruling because that is what they were being taught to do by those who were supposed to teach them what is clean and unclean. Yahweh has a hedge around his people, but sin, the transgression of the law, or Torah, breaks down that hedge. Now Yahweh is looking for someone to stand and to build up that hedge and stand in the breach. And I sought for a man among them who would make a wall and stand in the breach before me on behalf of the land, that I should not destroy it. But I did not find one. Ezekiel 22, verse 30. Of course, Yahushua, his son, is the one who came and stood in the breach for us. He has reconciled us to Yahweh through his blood, and those who believe on him will be considered righteous in his eyes. To defeat a corrupt world like ours today, we must stand in the breach alongside Yahushua. But how? Well, there are some scriptural examples that we could see for us to follow. That is, then he said that he would destroy them, had not Moshe, his chosen one, stood before him in the breach to turn away his wrath from destroying them. Psalms 106, verse 23. This psalm summarizes the sins of Israel in the wilderness, primarily concerning the golden calf. With his petition on their behalf, Moshe stepped between Yahweh and the people by standing in the breach, thus saving Israel from Yahweh's wrath. There are several people in Scripture who stood between Yahweh and others and set an example for us to follow. Stephanos, or as he's commonly called, Stephen, prayed for those stoning him. And they were stoning Stephanos as he was calling and saying, "Master Yahushua, receive my spirit." And kneeling down, he cried with a loud voice, "Master, do not hold this sin against them." And having said this, he fell asleep. Acts 7, verses 59 through 60. Apollos, Yahweh sent one, prayed for Israel's deliverance. Truly, brother, my heart's desire and prayer to Elohim for Israel is for deliverance. Romans 10, verse 1. And as Yahushua was dying, he stood between Yahweh and man, praying for them, saying, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do." Luke 23, verse 34. And the thing is, he still does. Therefore, he is also able to save completely those who draw near to Elohim through him, ever living to make intercession for them. Hebrews 7, verse 25. And since Yahushua is our example, we should do as well, as Apollos teaches us. First of all, then, I urge that petitions, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving be made for all men. 1 Timothy 2, verse 1. In Yahweh's wisdom, He has chosen to use the prayers of the people to accomplish His will. He still seeks those who stand in the breach for friends, family, for people groups and nations, asking for Yahweh to spare and to save. No doubt, Noah was doing this in his generation, even for violent and corrupt individuals. The question is, are we willing to stand in the breach for others? It could be that you are someone who could stand in the breach for another person. Paulus understood the power of standing in the breach, and he implored brethren in Rome to pray for them. But I urge you, brothers, through the Master Yahushua Messiah, and through the love of the Spirit, to strive together with me in prayers for me unto Elohim. Romans 15, verse 30. The Greek word Apollo uses here for strive is, I won't be able to pronounce it correctly. Hopefully I do. Synagonozomai, long word. Strong's number G 4865, which means to strive together with, to help one in striving, to struggle in company of, to be a partner, assistant, strive together with. Agreeing to pray for someone is more than just a nice gesture to let them know we're thinking of them, or a pat on the back to encourage them. When we say we'll pray for someone, we're agreeing to put on Yahweh's armor and march to the front lines of battle on their behalf and struggle with them. In ancient times, brackets were attached to the sides of many shields. These brackets were a type of latch used by soldiers to secure their shields during battle. When the soldiers were locked together, they moved as one, forming a barricade against the enemy. The shield was a weak defense on its own. However, when they locked shields, they formed a human wall, and they were connected. Then they became strong. When we lock arms in prayer with brethren, we lock our shields together and form a strong wall of defense. Thus we struggle with them, and this wall is something the enemy cannot penetrate. This is what Yahweh is looking for amongst brethren. That is, be a wall all around, uniting as one, as Kippah Petro tells us. Drawing near to him, a living stone, rejected indeed by men, but chosen by Elohim and precious. You also, as living stones, are being built up a spiritual house, a set apart priesthood, to offer up spiritual slaughter offerings acceptable to Elohim through Yahushua Messiah. 1 Peter 2, verses 4 through 5. Each one of us are living stones. If we're not unified, we're just a stone that can be walked over. But as we build on top of one another, we're building up unto a spiritual house. And when we offer a slaughtering through Yahushua, then nothing can enter that house, enter the house that Yahweh builds. But if we don't allow Yahweh to build the house, then it is built in vain, as the psalmist says. If Yahweh does not build the house, its builders have labored in vain. If Yahweh does not guard the city, the watchman has stayed awake in vain. Psalms 127, verse 1. Except Yahweh build the house, you're spinning your wheels. It's just a lot of futile effort. And so we must allow him to find shields to lock onto. And we must allow him to place us where we need to be a part of the building that he wants us to be. Let's not be like those in Noah's day who ignored the warnings as Noah was standing in the breach for them. Let's not be like the false prophets and priests who refused to stand in the breach for the people. Instead, let's struggle with people around us and pray for them on their behalf. Let's let them know that they're not alone in the fight against Satan and his minions. Let's lock arms and form a wall that cannot be breached by putting on the armor of Yahweh. Let's let Yahweh build his house just as he told Noah to build the ark. Hallelujah. If you like this teaching, please comment, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And click on the notification button to be notified of the next teaching. Yahweh bless, and shalom to your homes.